Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist, and I also am the parent of several ADHD children, and I married into a whole family that has a lot of ADHDers in it. And so I have been working with ADHD for about 40 years now. Okay, when I first started recognizing that there was something a little bit unusual about my youngest, they did not have a formal diagnosis of ADHD. They had this weird hyperkinetic reaction to childhood, which is wrong on so many counts it's not even funny. Then they changed the name to ADD, attention deficit disorder, which was okay with most of us, and then for some reason 7 years later they changed it to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Well, and since then they have been doing research like crazy to find out what's going on with ADHD. So ADHD, the biggest problem ADHD has is it looks like a behavior problem. It looks like you're just a rotten kid, but it's a neurologic condition. Okay, and what it does, it's all about the neurotransmitters in the brain, which are the way your neurons communicate with each other. A particular one that is of concern is dopamine. And when you are, and ADHD kids for some reason have low levels of dopamine. And not sure whether it's because they metabolize faster than other people or they manufacture it slower. Don't know. I'm not sure anybody does. But the deal is when they have low dopamine, they are uncomfortable. They are physically uncomfortable. And certain things increase the loss of dopamine, punishment, being real unhappy, being real scared, those kinds of things cause the increased metabolism of ADHD. I mean, of dopamine, I'm sorry. ADHD is what we're talking about, right? Got it. Okay. Now, one of the big problems you have with ADHD is working memory. And working memory is like when you tell them, I want you to go up to your room, I want you to make your bed, pick the clothes up off the floor, and clean up your bathroom, say. And you check back on them in a half hour or 40 minutes, and they've done 2 out of 3 and don't even remember that you asked them to do the third one. That's working memory causing problems. Okay, now, why am I talking about this now? Well, because the holidays, although we all love them and enjoy a lot about them, although that is true, they also disrupt our routines, the way we have managed a household, the way we, get up in the morning, get out the door for school, or get ready for bed at night, all those things, they get disrupted because, all of a sudden we're at grandma's house. And she'll let me get away with anything. And then we know that ADHDers don't do real well with high levels of sugar. But what happens in the holidays? Most of us, even the adults, eat tons more sugar than they do during the rest of the year. Yeah, and some people gets to the point where they have an extra pair of pants that are bigger for after the holidays until they get their weight back down. Anyway, and this happens, the disruption is even if you stay home, you're going to have guests probably. some of your family or that sort of thing will come and disrupt things. Or sometimes some families, you go to grandma's house or somebody's brother or something like that, which means you're totally, they're in a different bedroom, they're eating different food, they're eating at different times. It's all just designed to disrupt things. So, what do you do? Well, okay, the first thing you do is you try not to change the routine too much. Okay? No letting them play video games until 3 o'clock in the morning, that kind of stuff. You got to keep the routine pretty close to the way it was during the school week. Yeah, you give them a little more flex just because it's special, but you can't totally, totally throw the rule book out the door because you may never get control back. Okay, so the routines, particularly bedtimes. ADHDers are not great sleepers. Okay, they tend to have difficulties getting to sleep. They tend to be restless and fitful and wake up a lot and that sort of stuff. So they've got to get regular hours. Okay, your body wants the same routine all the time. If you were in a cave, you would still go to sleep at roughly the same time and wake up at roughly the same time. And you wouldn't have the sun or anything to tell you that, oh, it's daytime now. But you would settle into a routine. Okay, so what you want to make sure is that their routine doesn't get too far off. And too far off is one of those things you'll develop some expertise in figuring out. But in general, the closer you can keep it to the way it always is during the week, when you're at home, the better. Okay, so sleep is huge because the more you disrupt that, the more everything else gets disrupted. Okay, the next thing to think about is diet. Okay, you're at somebody else's house, say, or you're at your house for that matter, and all of a sudden there are all these cakes and pies and cookies. That's just a lot of things that are sweet that you just don't usually get during the course of the year. And my wife never buys candy for the house except over the holidays. And that's the only time I get Reese's. The Christmas tree ones. They're really good. But I know that they're not good for me. And I also know that left to my own devices, I'd probably try to eat the whole bag. But I know I have to share, so I don't do that. But I am tempted. And guess what? Your ADHD child will be even more tempted. And although there's not formal, nobody says that an ADHDer is, well, some people say it, I guess, but that an ADHDer is more sensitive to sugar, but I know in our case, with our kids, a lot of sugar caused a lot of behavior problems. It just increased the difficulties. So highly recommend that you limit the amount of sugar intake. And if you have to pull mom aside and say, look, this is going to happen, or some really bad stuff's going to happen, most of the time, they don't want big dust ups in their house any more than you do. So sugar, keep it to a minimum. The other addiction is electronics. Now, presumably you have already dealt with this somewhat. You can't just let them go. Well, you're in Well, you're in the middle here, you know. You can't really say no, you don't get any electronics. Nowadays they need electrical devices to do their homework. And so you can't rule them out entirely, but you've got to keep it down to a reasonable amount. You know, you can't have them playing video games for 6, 7 hours a day. That's not good for them long term, and it's sometimes it's hard to get them out of that. I mean, I know one young man that I had as a patient, and he was a clever little rascal. It wasn't so little actually. He was what I think sophomore in high school. He had an uncle who was a total computer head or whatever you call them. I mean, he was just that's all he did. He kind of dropped out of school and just and was living, in his mother's basement and all that stuff. You don't want that for your kid, especially your ADHD kid. So you've got to, set some reasonable limits on how many hours they're allowed to play video games. Okay, and hopefully you've worked that out. But I can't give you an exact number of hours, but an hour a day or so probably is about right. Maybe a couple if they're doing okay. But the minute they're not doing okay, you gotta put the hammer down and do your thing. Okay, and now so electronics are a biggie, and sugar is a biggie. The other thing, it's important, really important, is exercise. Okay, exercise is the best natural way to increase dopamine levels for a kid, or for anybody, for adults for that matter. The more exercise they get, the higher their levels of dopamine. So, playing, and it doesn't have to be running marathons. It can be like playing touch football or playing soccer or whatever. But you want well-rounded kids, and so some kind of exercise has got to be part of it. The other thing that's important for dopamine levels is just being outside, breathing fresh air, getting some sunshine, vitamin D, and all that sort of thing. So that's important that they do it every day. It's probably easiest to do if you make it a regular routine, sort of like the Kennedys in their touch football games. Um, Set up a game of some sort, whatever level of endurance and athletic skill your family tends to have. Uh, Make sure that that's a regular routine. We're gonna 2 hours after Thanksgiving dinner, we're gonna play touch football, or maybe 2 hours before we're gonna play touch football. Whatever, but that they're outdoors, they're getting some exercise, some fresh air, some sunshine, all that sort of thing. And might be a good time to let them see that the old man has still got a little strength in the arm. So, um, the other things that is helpful if if you do this every year in the same place. As soon as they're able, and even maybe a little before you really are sure that they're able, give them a responsibility. Okay? Okay, you guys, Grandma wants you to set the table. Or when they get a little older, how about helping make the salads? You probably don't want them playing with butcher knives, but, to get them doing stuff. Um, it's good for them, and they feel important. They feel like they're part of the thing, of the routine, part of making the celebration happen. And they need that. They need some responsibility, and they need to feel that they're given back a little bit. And so I highly recommend that. And I'm gonna I've already decided that in a few weeks, I'm gonna do a presentation on routines, because routines are terribly important. Okay, ADHDers have problems with what's called working memory, and I already gave you an example of working memory. You tell them to do three things, and they go away and they totally forget one of them, or maybe two of them, and sometimes they forget all of them. And it's not that they're trying to get out of anything; it's that their working memory literally does not work very well. Um, and we all have working memory problems on occasion, and we all have some, probably some stories we could tell about working memory, about how many times you spend looking for or how much time you spend looking for your cell phone or your car keys or, um, your hat, your sunglasses before you leave, and that's all working memory. And it's also because you have not set up routines. And routines are critically important for ADHDers, because the good thing about a routine is you do not have to get in all these working memory aids if you've trained in a routine. Routine is just a set of habits. What is the habit you have when you get up in the morning? First thing in the morning, what do you do? And I guarantee you, for most of us adults, you do the same thing in roughly the same order until you are ready to leave the house. And it doesn't change much. That is a good thing to start using with your ADHD child. Matter of fact, use it as much as you can. When I was working in a rehab hospital, physical rehab, brain injuries and so on, we introduced a lot of different routines. Probably the most popular one was the memory jar. And for those people who can never find all the stuff they need to get out the door, just put a little bowl, or I use a baseball cap and just put it on the table in the hallway when you come in the door. And that's where everything goes. That's where the wallet goes. That's where the keys go. That's where the sunglasses go. Every time, it's always there. Because a lot of people, they'll come in, they'll sit down, and that's where their car keys go, and then they forget about it and go upstairs, and that's where their wallet goes. So every day it's something different. They're doing a little different thing. But if you have the memory jar idea, you take the stuff out of your pockets every day in the same place, so that when you have to leave, you've got all that stuff and you don't have to be running around looking for it. And it's an excellent idea for all of the family, to have a memory jar or a memory location where they put everything. And that way you're not running around all over the house looking, where did I put those keys? No. And starting the day off with a bunch of stress and nastiness. Okay, I think that's about it for today. Like I said, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass. My website is terrygingrassphd.com. I'm a coach. I coach ADHD executives and families, and basically I enjoy working with ADHD folks. I like their energy and enthusiasm, and the way they solve problems and look at the world. It's very interesting. It's not boring at all, which sometimes you run into folks that are just god awful boring. Anyway, so they're not boring. They're interesting to be with, to work with, and they get their hands around a few good ideas. They can run with it and do some amazing things. 70%, roughly, of all entrepreneurs have ADHD or ADHD-like symptoms. That's amazing. Entrepreneurs. That's the wave of the future. That's where people are going, and I am real impressed with that. And I think you should get that way too. And if you need to, um, you can sign up for my list on off of the website. You can sign up for a bunch of other things off of the website. We're trying to get a new system set up for scheduling, so you can schedule like a practice session just to see if we're going to get along. Uh, but right now, it's a new piece of software. I hate new pieces of software. Anyway, so we will catch you next week, and hopefully you're having a good holiday season, and hope all of your wishes and plans and things are fruitful. Okay, we will catch you later. Oh, one other thing. You may notice that the title on this is one you've seen before, but I just pulled that bad boy up and found out that the sound was not there. I don't know where it went, but it's not there. So we redid the same thing, and we're redoing it at publishing at a different time, but it'll work. Okay, so like I said, catch you later.